How's it going, Star Wars fans? Welcome to another episode of Star Wars Doctrine. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Cody Dastrup.
I'm Logan Schultz, and today we have the opportunity to be joined by Dominic Pace, which we're very excited to have you here with us today, Dominic.
Hey guys, how are you? Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We're for those who don't know, Dominic Pace here is actually going to be in the upcoming TV show for Disney Plus, The Mandalorian. And he was kind enough to decide to come on our show and hang out with us for a little bit, answer some questions, and kind of talk more about his role, his experience in being part of the Mandalorian, the TV show. So we're really excited.
For sure, yeah. So I guess, honestly, just tell us about your character.
Sure.
What is he like?
Absolutely. Well, I'll take you back a little bit just in terms of the experience for a lot of listeners. Obviously, being a Star Wars fan myself, I am a Generation Xer. I'm 44 years old. I've always dreamt, just like so many fans, of being part of the Star Wars universe. I've been sort of a blue-collar actor, and that what I mean by that is that I take any job. I promised my wife I left the restaurant business about 4 years ago as my survival job in between all the guest stars and co-stars on television. And I made a promise to her that I would take any work possible in order to make sure that obviously there's food on the table and we support the family there every way we can. Well, one of those jobs happened to be a simple makeup test with a group called Legacy Effects. Legacy Effects does a lot of prosthetics, makeup work for both Marvel and Disney there, of course, all their different productions. And they brought me in for a makeup test, not telling me anything about what the project was, anything what I was being used for. There was no guarantee whatsoever. Well, I happened to be tested under a gentleman by the name of Brian Sipe. Brian Sipe is one of the heads of Legacy Effects. And I sat in his chair patiently for 6 hours. I had some previous prosthetic experience with both Frankenstein. I doubled on Van Helsing. I was Frankenstein.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
With Hugh Jackman for about 3 months. And then also I was one of the orcs on Bright.
Oh, wow.
Aside from all the modern crime dramas, I had the privilege of working on some of these pieces there, which has always been a joy, just because sci-fi I've always been a huge fan of. There was no guarantee of any future work, but we kind of hit it off, and I gave him my card at the end of the day, and I said, hey, listen, whatever you're working on, if you don't mind keeping me in mind, because I'd love to work with you again. It was really a pleasure. Well, not only did he hire me for this project, but also at the same time, he gave me the most extensive makeup work. I did not know what I was working on until I came for a screen test for a project called Huckleberry. For Huckleberry, they brought me to a wardrobe room, and if the fans could listen here for a second, I can't tell you how amazing it was in terms of seeing my name on a tag with about 3 different wardrobe options with the words Bounty Hunter next to it. For any fan, I think listening there, it just really was just beyond anything I could have asked for. I've been so fortunate to work over the 20 years of my career, on every show from NYPD Blue to The District and NCIS, any crime drama you can think of over the past 15, 20 years I've been a part of. But being a diehard Star Wars fan, this was just more than I could have ever asked for. There were 3 options in terms of the wardrobe. I was given 2 wardrobe options where I was going to be masked with sort of these Star Wars-like masks. And Brian kind of fought for me to make sure that I was seen, and I had this really amazing prosthetic. He worked on this Greenpeace project 2 years prior. He had a small woman, must have been about 90 to 100 pounds, to where it was a Greenpeace photo shoot to where there's a character that he created called Gecko. And it had these 2 bumps on their head, very similar to a gecko. And they tested that on me for the first couple of days. They did a screen test, and then they also tested it one more time to see how quickly it was going to take for prosthetics and makeup department to get me prepped every day. Well, I saw it, and I tested in front of Jon Favreau and David Filoni, and I politely just asked, I said, being 6'4", 260 pounds, if you can maybe see if we can maybe add horns as opposed to bumps, because the funny aspect to it, I said, I don't know if you saw Kevin Nealon in Little Nicky, but I said, it kind of looks like boobs. I'm not going to lie. And I get the whole gecko thing, but I said, it would be like a lifetime Star Wars meme, gets in Star Wars, has boobs on his head, So I said, please, God, I said, don't, see if we can maybe adjust this slightly. Brian was kind enough to do so. It was not my discretion. It was John and David's, and of course, Brian's decision. And I got these 2 badass horns. The nickname was Gecko. It's not official from Disney, but One of the coolest looking bounty hunters. I hope the crowd and the fan base will enjoy. And I can't tell you what a privilege it was to play this. Now, one other little dream part that occurred, well, there was a few little dream parts throughout the first week of filming, was I always remember a story with Samuel Jackson to where he was presented with a lightsaber suitcase. And he got to pick whatever lightsaber he wanted. Well, I was one of the first bounty hunters. It's almost like a bounty hunter guild, a group of all unique kind of scum and villainy that all the fan base will truly enjoy. And it was an entire table full of blasters. Now, for any Star Wars fan, I think you can sort of relate in terms of getting to decide what blaster you want for your character.
Right.
Unique, one-of-a-kind bounty hunter character. I cannot tell you how amazing that experience was in that regard. So, 6'4", 260 pounds. I have the frame of Jason, Kane Hodder from Friday the 13th. I said, this guy's got to go big. And we had 15 to 16-hour days. But I think every Star Wars fan would agree that it's a labor of love to pull around, a blaster that really suited your body and your shape.
Pretty heavy?
It was heavy. It was real. It was a real semi-automatic with a paintball canister attached to the back. There's a curved dagger. When everything airs, I want to make sure that all the cosplayers know exactly how to design it. I have a friend of mine in West Virginia, of all places, that's going to be designing and recreating it for me. Unfortunately, I wish I could tell you I got to keep my costume like every Star Wars fan would love and be able to frame it, put it in your own shrine and museum. But that's all property of Disney and Lucasfilm. So I have a lot of people recreating some of my costume as well as the props there.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I can't imagine the experience you had getting to, as a fan yourself, getting to be part of that and getting to pick your own blaster, kind of create your, have some personalization to your character a little bit. That's
for sure. I mean, just thinking awesome. With Han Solo has his iconic gun. I mean, Chewie has his bowcaster. Definitely with Star Wars, the weapons have been kind of definitive parts for just characters in general. So that's really cool.
Absolutely. There's a little bit of action in it to where, unfortunately, props, they were totally fine with it because I always equate this scene, and you'll see it, fairly soon, to where I felt like Rudy Rudiger from the movie Rudy and Sean Astin. I don't know if you remember. There's this one moment where he tells the coach that he's been waiting for this moment his whole life. He finally gets to play on this field, And there was a stunt coordinator, and there was this one scene where, I've got to do quite a maneuver there. And he's like, listen, he says, if you feel, hesitant and all, and I've been doing stunts my whole career, you can go through my resume. And a lot of times some of the co-stars, being a big guy, they've asked me to take a hit or, fall or what have you. But I basically went up to that stunt coordinator, just like any diehard Star Wars fan. And I said, I've been waiting for this my whole life. So the blaster kept falling apart a little bit, but it was obviously well deserved because I wanted to give 110% for this once in a lifetime opportunity. Just to add to that, in terms of just how amazing this experience was, imagine being on set the first day and you walk into this cantina-like bar and sitting there with his arms folded is George Lucas himself. Wow. I was beyond words. Wow. When you're at the level and it's $100 million budget, you can't interact and such. You're there, they say jump, you say how, you ask how high. But as far as to have that experience, to see God himself within his own element amongst the legendary, now Kathleen Kennedy and Jon Favreau and David Filoni are all doing such an amazing job. It was more than I could have ever asked for there.
Oh my goodness, that's incredible. I can't, I didn't know that you had gotten to see George on set as well. That makes sense. I'd heard that he's involved.
There's a picture almost exactly a year ago because I think it was John's birthday about 2-3 days ago, to where it was actually Jon Favreau's birthday. So he visited for Favreau's birthday, bought him a nice bottle of wine, and I think you can see that on John's Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
First day.
I think we've seen that picture.
Yeah, it was
that's
very
incredible.
Special. Mm-hmm.
Well, how was it? I mean, just getting to work with Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. I mean, they're both huge Star Wars fans themselves, and as far as have been instrumental in the Star Wars TV series thus far.
Sure.
So how was that?
You also wanted to add another director there is Deborah Chow, who directs.
Oh, Deborah Chow for sure.
Right.
Deborah directs 2 episodes. One I'm featured in. It was amazing. I can't tell you how professional the demeanor was on set, and I can't tell you how beautifully diverse the set was. Matter of fact, the first time I've ever seen a first and second assistant director that were both female. I thought that was very beautiful, being Italian American myself, to see all the diversity. I mean, what makes America so beautiful is in terms of our diverse culture. So that was really amazing. But on top of that, there's a demeanor amongst David and John that you can feel that is not only in control, but also very pleasant. There was never one time where it was sort of this Michael Bay or James Cameron vibe back in the 90s to where people were screaming or shouting or any of that sort. It was just very professional to where they let the director direct, but also at the same time, you could see sort of there was an old restaurant book in terms of managing restaurants called Constant. It was a tip called Constant Gentle Pressure, to where you have the leadership of the people overseeing, but at the same time, it was gentle and it was friendly. So every single day coming to work, not only to be in our element of the amazing Star Wars universe, but to be amongst these legendary directors and producers was obviously absolutely priceless.
Well, and I mean, obviously, you speak highly of Deborah Chow, and I think obviously Lucasfilm feels the same way with giving her the Obi-Wan Kenobi series coming up, and that's pretty cool. To be part of that. So
I owe her quite a bit, and I hope I get to see her again. There was a cut that they had to do with a group of bounty hunters after the first week, because then they were moving on to something a little bit more featured. And what ended up transpiring was that featured bit was really hopefully screenshots that I'll be able to save for a lifetime, and my kids and my grandkids will be able to appreciate. Again, I've been on TV so many times, but nothing is compared to this. Not only from my own point of view, but also my own children, to where, they see dad playing a bad guy. I got, a guest star opposite Ronda Rousey pretty soon on Fox's 911, and I'll be on a new show called Deputy on Fox early in January. But it's nothing compared to being in the Star Wars universe. Fortunately, I got a little part in the new Harlequin piece there. It'll be out, I think, in February. And then also Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I've done. But again, I just, for me personally, Star Wars has always been the cream of the crop. So this is obviously very special for my family and I.
Yeah, well, and I think that's one of the things that fans have wanted for the longest time, is to have people involved in Star Wars who feel the same way about Star Wars as they do, right? That they can relate. You grew up with Star Wars. You have a love for it. You're not just acting because it's a job.
Right.
Obviously, like you said, you got to provide for your family, but you also have the love and the respect for what Star Wars is, and it means the world to you. So I couldn't be, happier to know that people like you are involved in Star Wars. But
yeah, and I know that Filoni himself specifically selected groups of the 501st as well, the Legion, and I know they're very excited to be seen as well on screen. And the one thing I have to say, for the fans is, maybe it could be a cultural thing for me, to where I always think about sharing. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced a beautiful vacation. I've had the fortune to travel to a lot of great places with my work throughout the world. But the one thing I think about most is how somebody else would appreciate it as well. There's nothing more beautiful to me than sharing. And there was a couple of moments to where my back was away from the screen. And as an actor, over the years, you sort of create this sort of matrix style of ideology to where all of a sudden the world disappears, the cameras go away, and you create this world. And I just wish I could have put so many Star Wars fans into my skin, my eyes, my feet, my body, because there was one point where I'm interacting sort of with a group of Star Wars characters, and the cameras disappeared for a bit for me, and it was the most magical feeling you can imagine.
Just really immersing yourself in the universe there. That's incredible.
Yeah.
One thing you had mentioned too is so your character, nicknamed Gecko, quite the makeup process.
Yes.
How was that like sitting there and experiencing the makeup process? Like, I'm assuming it was pretty long.
Pretty long, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you can, I don't know what I can compare it to in terms of maybe if you played football or what have you, where sometimes things might be grueling, but if you know what the ultimate outcome is, like you're going to win the championship game, or you just have that dream come true, or just the labor of love, to where, even those who work out, to where, it's like no pain, no gain. It just, I don't think it compares to anything else in terms of even, sometimes breathing in the paint, over an hour and a half each day, and sometimes under your eyes get a little sensitive. But just the fact that you're in your element, that's something you've dreamt of ever since literally I was a child. It's almost as if the adrenaline is pumping so much, not only through the makeup process and just genuinely enjoying every moment. But I'll tell you, my costume was very hot. It was uncomfortable in many ways. But all of this completely ignored, on top of the blaster, which I'm carrying, obviously it was, if it was your weapon, you could not put it down at all, obviously for safety reasons and also for liability reasons in terms of making sure that you brought it back at the end of the day. But it just, nothing hurt. I think if you do any 16-hour job, if you're working at Walmart or you're working, as a taxi driver or waiting tables, you'd be, dragging by the end of the day. I slept perfectly, and even if I was on 5 hours sleep, you get to that set and you couldn't be more excited because obviously you knew what you were doing.
Well, for sure we know that you were excited to be on set, but was like there kind of a similar general atmosphere on the set, or what was the atmosphere of the other actors on set?
It broke my heart in certain ways because I knew that certain actors were there for a job. It's not that they were being negative, but the one thing I think about so many fans that I've been familiar with at Comic-Cons and alike in terms of being in these chat rooms and groups throughout the years. To me, that kind of broke my heart because I said, God, it would be so nice to be with everyone who's been such a diehard cosplayer or fan. So, but that's not to say at this level that whether they are a fan or not, that they're not giving 110% as well. You're chosen for a specific reason, and whether they have that inside, that level of enthusiasm, or they need to bring it out of them because it's their job, I guarantee you it's certainly there. But you know what I mean in terms of obviously being a lifelong collector and fan.
Sure.
It certainly makes things a lot more special to come to work.
For sure. I mean, we're definitely jealous of your job right now and being able to take part in, I think, every fan's dream.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You mentioned your collection. Mm-hmm. We actually got to watch the YouTube clip of when, I don't even know, maybe you could tell me how long ago that was, but was it Entertainment Television that you were?
Entertainment Tonight. That was before episode 1.
Okay.
And I was just being asked in terms of, did you keep the nostalgia and the collecting all throughout your life? I actually had that little 10-year break like most Gen Xers did, or 10, 15 years, between the hype of episode 1 and then also when Return of the Jedi kind of left us. But it made things all the more nostalgic on that midnight, special night with Toys R Us and all the special toy stores to where they released the episode 1 toys. What I tell people in terms of collecting, it's not so much about toys or sci-fi for me. What makes Star Wars magical, and my favorite episodes, I know that they have all these people that list their favorite episodes, and what's the best and what's the ones on top that people love this, Revenge of the Sith or Empire Strikes Back, etc. The things that mean the most to me are the stories that connect with family, that connect with relationships. Rogue One, Empire Strikes Back, the Brotherhood, in so to speak, with Revenge of the Sith at the end. Those points are very powerful to me. And now that's what resonates for me through the figures. It's the memories of childhood, being with my mom, being with my grandparents, the fact that I grew up in a single home, the relationship that Lucas had with his father, my relationship with my father, things like that make the figures important for me. And I think that's why I've always had a passion for collecting, and not so much a general interest in sci-fi overall, but specifically for Star Wars because of those relationships and those magical memories that we had as children, that we had with our friends, our family, etc. That make those toys, when we look at them, we bring back those memories.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of us can really resonate with just the relationships in Star Wars. I think they're some of the most talked about parts of Star Wars. I mean, well, obviously there's the lightsaber fights probably first, but then after that it's the relationships and connecting with the characters. That being said, do you have like a favorite item that you've collected over the years?
I loved Icon, and I remember Icons, and I remember when Sharper Image was open, the store, I would go through there all the time looking at the life-size Boba Fett or looking at the different lightsabers or the Han Solo blaster. For me, I just got a replica of the Han Solo blaster, and also I have one of those lightsabers from Icons, the Luke Skywalker lightsaber. And the reason is, for me, not only I think it's sort of a nod to how unique and creative the designs are of Star Wars, and for me, I think it resonates and represents the magic of the series, but also for me, for Mark Hamill, I mean, just the magic of him in general, which started it for so many boys and girls, when I was growing up, and also throughout the generations, on how he sort of was the cornerstone of this amazing franchise that has kind of extended out throughout the years. So for me, those mean the most to me. Han Solo, obviously love Harrison Ford for so many reasons. Such an alpha male with charisma. I think you can count on one hand how many actors there are that are able to pull that off with charm and also a leadership. And then also the magic of Mark Hamill, which again was so refreshing to me as a child, and great memories there.
Do you think that your character would have been friendly to Han Solo or to Luke Skywalker?
Absolutely not. I mean, it was completely ruthless and completely unapologetic with the moments that I had. I'm a really nice guy in real life, but it's funny because when I go in for casting auditions where I usually play the tough guy, I'm 6'4", I can't talk to them. When they ask me about how is everything, I try to keep quiet because, when it's on screen, we turn the whole coin there. Absolutely not. Completely ruthless, do whatever it takes to get that bounty, and it doesn't matter whether it's a baby or it's a criminal. I think that my character would certainly go after it without any question.
All right, motivated by the bounty. I like it.
Absolutely.
Just in talking about your collection and how passionate you are about Star Wars, like touch on like how special it is that, I mean, there's a good chance you can add yourself to your own collection, like your own blaster, like you said you got to pick, or possibly an action figure and
like series
things
figure
like
or something.
that.
We're holding our breath. There's a gentleman in Ohio who just for fun created a Funko Pop figure of me, and I'd love to show you guys. The only thing I'm concerned with is being an 8-hour series over the movie, to where obviously the side characters within the movies are always highlighted. But for me, I think that's going to generate from the attention from the fan base, and I hope that I have the support of the fans in regards to getting that, because obviously I'm going to be honest with you, and a lot of actors would slap me right now. But to be honest, the reason I got involved in this business was because of the beautiful memories of childhood and the memories of imagination. And I knew nothing about an Academy Award. I knew nothing about an Emmy Award. And to me, having an action figure would actually be more to me, I know this sounds crazy, than having an Academy Award. For me, it's always been about the innocence of childhood. I love films to where it completely gives us a level of escapism, no matter whether it's Goonies, E.T., or Back to the Future, or Star Wars. Those movies for me, Indiana Jones, has been what entertainment has always been about. I'm not here to give you the outside world in any way, shape, or form. I'm here to help you escape, no matter what you're going through in life, to be able to give you that joy. And the reason is because those actors, those artists, and those directors, Richard Donner, Steven Spielberg, Robert Zemeckis, George Lucas, Joe Dante, gave that to me, and I hope that I'm able to give that as well. And with that being said, I can't tell you how amazing that would be. And we're just going to hopefully hold our breath to get a Black Series or a 3.75 figure. That would just be beyond words.
We'll have to talk to all the fans and make sure they're on board and all pumped about your character. And I'm sure we will be.
Absolutely.
That would mean so much to me. Thank you.
There's just looking at the concept art and some of the stuff for your character, I'd be all in on buying a Black Series of that. It is a really incredibly cool looking character that you pulled off there.
Thank you so much. And, again, I also want to recognize Richard A. Pora, who's been a costume designer for the Star Wars series for quite some time. He also does Orville as well, who helped, with the bandolier and the gloves and sort of the mask. Initially, I wasn't going to have the mask. And as much as, I think everyone wants to compliment their own face. For me, to kind of have something a little bit more, intense, almost like a Bane kind of feel to it, I thought it was special. And that was Richard A. Pora's decision. I presented it in front of him because they were taking photos of me before I had the mask on. And I said, wait, 1 second. And I went over to Richard. I said, Richard, this is awesome, right? And he says, yeah. He says, please wear that. And I said, absolutely, because it just added a little bit more of that badass feel. My favorite figures recently have been the Death Trooper. And the reason is because I think there's nothing cooler, not to brag about my own height, but to have somebody big and imposing. And, I think you go through Zuckuss and Forlom and Dengar and Boba Fett. But they, to be honest with you, a lot of them were just kind of the average height. I mean, IG-88, of course, went up there. And there was a life-size one, a real one that I saw on set, which was beyond the order, IG-11. But I think in terms of an imposing bounty hunter, a big, burly guy, which a lot of us a lot of the cosplayers and a lot of the fans are, big, and we like to throw back a few beers, and have a burger. I think that'll hopefully be something appealing to the fan base there, to have somebody maybe that they can look up to and say, hey, I don't have to look like a Jason Momoa in order to pull off this bounty hunter. Dom is he likes to eat himself. He's Italian, and this would fit me perfectly there, and I can relate to it.
Oh man, there's been quite a bit of hype, obviously, around the Mandalorian coming out, and I know you're probably limited on what you can say, but what are some things that you could say as far as what we can expect from one, the Mandalorian in general as fans, and two, your character in general.
I think honestly we've been, what we've seen, and I think certainly Disney, JJ, and John and David have certainly acknowledged. I mean, whether you're for or against a lot of the criticism recently, John and David obviously seem extremely bright. They're in charge of a $100 million budget. I think they're certainly aware of perhaps some of the flaws that might have occurred within the most recent episodes. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with whether people like or dislike the recent episodes. But I think, when you're dealing with a $100 million budget and the 5 that I felt, I think we have a lot to look forward to. I think if you look at that featurette, how beautiful is it in terms of, I used to play, I'm not what you would call a gamer, but I definitely played Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption. But I mean, if you put yourself in the shoes of a bounty hunter to where he's given these tasks, I mean, to me, that alone, as far as just even a game alone, sounds really, really awesome.
Oh,
so
for sure.
You take that storyline and you put it into, our favorite series, and roll with it, and you kind of make this guy a little bit more of a protagonist as opposed to, just kind of a one-dimensional sort of badass, villain. I think there's something very special about that. You combine that with the talents of their lead cast, Nick Nolte and Werner Herzog. I mean, such a legendary director through so many years, and of course the beautiful and gorgeous Gina Carano there, and not to mention, again, being Italian American, growing up with the Rocky series, Carl Weathers, what a gift he is as an artist, and to be alongside him was obviously such a dream come true. I think the fans have a lot to look forward to. I think that John and David certainly are fans themselves. They know what the fans want, and I think it's going to be able to sort of bring it back to the direction we wanted it to always head, which again was about the intensity, about the story, and also catering to people from all different walks of life.
That's awesome. I mean, I think that's something that a lot of the Star Wars fandom has been excited about for The Mandalorian, is just that I think it was Favreau who came out and said this was something kind of for the older fans, and it is something that I think the entire fan base has been excited for, to have something a little different. Yeah. And just to really see, and I know we're all just counting down the days till we get to see you and the rest of the cast in The Mandalorian from Disney Plus.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Well, Dominic, we really appreciate you being willing to come on with us. It certainly means the world to us as Star Wars fans to get to talk with you, give us a small insight into your experiences and everything like that. Let us live through you a little bit. And I can't tell you how excited I am to see how it unfolds on screen with you. And I know a lot of fans are excited as well.
I wanted to add just, for the listeners, again, I can't emphasize how much this has been a dream come true. I appreciate everyone's support. I got an email yesterday from a fan whose child was a huge Star Wars fan. I may not always be able to do it, but again, if it's something to where it's a simple video call or a note or a voice note that I can leave for a fan, or maybe a child who might be ill or something like that, especially those that are members of the 501st and the Mandalorian Mercs, to be able to maybe touch people's lives through this series that we love so much. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm on social media, Dominic Pace, to be able to hopefully be able to pass that torch of a gift or a dream come true, where it's a fan that just wants to maybe have a little special note from somebody that's involved in Star Wars. That means just as much to me as it does to them.
That's awesome.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning in to Star Wars Doctrine, and thank you, Dominic, for being on the show with us. And make sure everyone to check him out on November 11th. His character probably called Gecko, and we're excited to see you, and hopefully the fans are as excited to see The Mandalorian.
All right, yeah. Make sure you guys let's give our full support to Dominic. Seriously, just the fact that he's able to willing to get with us here on this and be so open and talkative with the fans. It just really goes to show, how much he cares about the franchise of Star Wars, how much he cares about us as fans, and that's what we need to support. So definitely get out, support him, follow him on Instagram. He's on Facebook as well, and look for him, and let's support his character. Thank you guys once again for tuning in, and as always, may the Force be with you.